Back to you in the studio, Bob. welcome to another episode of the Players Ball Podcast for AT Aliens by AT Aliens. I'm your host, MB. Kinda. What's your name, fella? Welcome to the show.
Alex.
Oh man, it's loopy season, man. It's the week of the draft. We're gonna talk about that this week. We got a couple of items in front of that though. We just came out of Easter, so I want to read my I want to read my Easter message to y'all in the group. I thought it was pretty well designed haiku. Had no idea that that's what we were doing. Shout out Demo for pointing that out to us. I said, eggs missing, bunnies tripping, ham sizzling. He is risen. Let's go, Jesus. Yeah, man. How was your Easter? Did you do anything?
It was good. We went to 8 a.m. service. We went to a Good Friday service on Friday. Went
Yeah.
to the 8 a.m. service yesterday and then went and had lunch at the in-laws. It was a good weekend overall. I appreciated your haiku. You know, it was getting a little tensious in the group chat. We got
It
some
was.
torrid fans of some teams that are in the NBA playoffs right now that didn't meet expectations, and people were letting those fans hear it.
They were, and the comeuppance was not long after. Right, the very next day, the biggest voice of hate. Um, his team ended up losing too, but at least their teams are in the dance. Right, we'll talk about that too, but we're not gonna start there.
We got traffic incoming, covering all the biggest news in ATL sports, no matter the lane, no matter the highway. Let's get into it with Spaghetti Junction.
Um, there was some Easter news about the dogs, man. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Dogs had a big Easter Sunday. They got commitments from three guys out of the transfer portal. The biggest name being Elo Madozie, I believe that, or Madozie. We'll learn how to pronounce his name soon. But he's an edge. He's coming out of Army. He's got 2 years of eligibility remaining. He's 6'3", 245 pounds. Last season, he had 34 tackles, 6.5 sacks, and 1 pass deflection. So he's coming in, going to help with some depth at the edge and outside linebacker position, where we lost 2 pretty key names, Damon Wilson and Samuel Mpemba. We lost them to the portal after the end of last season. Damon Wilson ended up going to Missouri, chasing that bag. And Samuel Mpemba, I believe, went to Texas A&M. So we will likely, I think we play. I don't think we play either this year. But if they make it to the SEC championship, maybe we'll see them there. But needless to say, we had some big shoes to fill. Not a lot of experience in that room. We did sign a few in the last signing day period, but freshmen are freshmen, right? You still want some guys with some actual reps to fill out the depth chart. So they got him.
Un momento, por favor. Transferring from Army. Maybe I'm just the silliest man in the world. I thought all Army football players were enlisted. You can't just leave the Army, right? Is that not a thing?
So I don't know how it works exactly, but yes, when you go to Army, I believe you choose to serve after graduation as an officer, right? Coming out with a degree. So I don't know how the transfer portal works, but he hopped in that thing and he's headed to Georgia.
All right, man.
He
Hope they don't hit my
was
man with a dereliction of duty, you know.
he was ranked as a number 4 prospect in the transfer portal, number 4 unsigned prospect in the portal. So big news signing him. And then they went down to South Beach and snatched up a 6'4", 295 defensive lineman originating from Fairburn, Georgia. He actually is a high school teammate of offensive lineman for the Dogs, Bo Hewley, and they won a state championship together at Langston Hughes just 2 years ago. So he'll be joining one of his old teammates. He didn't get a lot of play at Miami. I think last year he recorded like 4 tackles, 2 solos, maybe half of a tackle for loss. But either way, I think he battled a little bit of injuries and youth, right? I don't think Bo Hewley didn't get a lot of run at UGA either. It's very atypical for a freshman to start, at least at UGA. But he's a depth pickup as well. And then we had some negative news recently that Branson Robinson, who was the number 1 running back coming out of high school back in 2022, decided to enter the transfer portal after spring. So we dipped into the portal and picked up Illinois running back Josh McCray. He had 609 yards rushing last season with 10 touchdowns. And then he capped off last year with a 114-yard 2 TD game against University of South Carolina in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. And that was a Illinois W against USC. So
do you think Josh Horton, the Miami defensive lineman, like went to Carson Beck at all? It's like, hey man, what do you think? You know, should I go to Georgia? You think he picked his brain?
No, I don't think Carson has a lot of friends right now. He's got more enemies. We can talk
even
about
down there.
Yeah, so he went to Miami chasing a lady, and him and that lady are no longer together.
Word?
Yeah, so there's
one of them sisters or twins, right?
Yeah, one of the Cavender twins.
I thought he was chasing a bag. Miami broke him up, didn't he?
They did, but he would not have transferred to Miami if it wasn't for old girl being there.
He would have stayed at Georgia?
No,
or he would have went somewhere.
I think he would have. I think he would have gone to the draft. He originally declared and then decided to enter the transfer portal. So
yeah, he was hurt. I'm sure he wanted time to prove himself, right? You have Shador, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart. I think there's a 4th quarterback that I've heard about, but it's just those 4 that I heard. So maybe he could have snuck in, but next year, I don't know who would be coming out next year.
So you'll have Quinn Ewers. No, Quinn's coming out this past year. So you'll have potentially
Quinn Ewers going into the draft?
I believe so. You'll have the Manning son, what's his name?
Big Arch.
Arch, thank you. So he could be competing with Arch Manning and a few other guys next year. But no, I think what you're saying holds true. There were less big time names, and I think in street clothes, not in pads, Carson Beck would actually jump off the tape because he has a really big arm. So just running drills, I think he would have done well for teams. But we don't have to dive too far into that. There's some other news to get to. I didn't know if you heard about this one, but Ronnie posted on social media, X, the old Twitter. If it were me, they would have taken me out of the game. And that was in reference to a play that happened Saturday night where Jared Kelnick thought he hit a home run, kind of pimped it a little bit, got caught watching, got thrown out at second base. Should have been an easy double. It went off the wall, but instead he was thrown out. Back
In a critical game.
in a critical game.
A critical point in the game.
At a critical moment in the game, yes.
Yeah.
But back in 2019, Ronnie did the same thing. Well, to an extent. He didn't get thrown out, but a easy double turned into a single in a game against the Dodgers. And shortly after, Brian Snicker decided to bench him for the rest of that game. And in closing, he made some comments about how we need to run and that as a player, you're responsible for everyone else in the locker room. It's your duty to give your best effort every time out. So Ronnie obviously felt some kind of way. I want to know how you feel.
I did hear about it. His method of delivery probably a little poor. It's poor optics to challenge your head coach via Twitter, right? But you read most of the quote. It said he didn't run. You've got to run. It's not going to be acceptable here. As a teammate, you're responsible for 24 other guys, and the name in the front is a lot more important than the name on the back of the jersey. It was 6 years ago, but that's a pretty strong statement to go from that to saying, was I supposed to, when asked if Jared Kelnick, if he was I don't know what the question was, but he said, was I supposed
He was asked if he had
to, when asked if he
talked.
had said anything to Kelnick. Yeah. Yeah, nah, I get why Ronnie's mad.
I do too.
I don't go to Twitter, but I get it. I don't necessarily. I do fault him because you keep that stuff internal, right? Let the press talk about it because it would have came out,
Yeah.
or send somebody else out there to say it. Don't say it with your own account. That's crazy.
So that tweet has since been deleted by Ronnie.
Hmm.
And Snit was asked about it post game yesterday, and he said that when he was originally asked about it, he didn't know what the guy was referring to because he said he didn't see the play, which I find hard to believe, right? Like, what are you doing if you didn't see the
Right.
play? I mean, there were, I think, other runners on base, so maybe you weren't looking that way, but you obviously saw the outcome or knew about the outcome. But he said he had seen the clip later that night and had talked to Jared about it after that. So before yesterday's game, he said he talked to Jared about it. So he kind of walked back, I guess, a little bit, tried to deny knowledge of exactly what happened in the moment in the previous question. But he also said he did not see the comment from Ronnie and he didn't see too, worried about it. So what do you think?
Yeah, he said he's not on social media. So I heard Andy Randy talk about it on 929. No, man, I don't get it. Just own it. Say, all right, man, it's a different time. You can't just just try to sweep it on the rug and think it's gonna go away.
Yeah.
Managing the bottom of and I will save a bit of it, but you're managing the bottom of the barrel in the NL East. And you're saying that you're not watching the game when your man is rounding first into second after he thought he hit a home run. Maybe he thought he hit a home run too and looked down. Like, you don't have a whole lot going on over there during each at bat.
Yeah, like I'm not really buying the, I didn't see it comment, but at the same time,
Randy said he's going soft.
I think this is his last year. I think he's
Hmm.
kind of done. I will say to his defense, when that happened in 2019, it wasn't the first time Ronnie had been caught kind of not hustling to first or hustling around the bases. So it was not a first time offense. This was in a very short period of time, because Jared Kelnick's only been on the squad for one season, and then the games that he's played this year. So he hadn't had an issue up to this point. So maybe he felt like it wasn't a bigger issue, where he might have felt it was a bigger issue with Ronnie. But either way, you got to be equal opportunity with how you coach, and you can't be calling one guy out for not hustling and then letting it slide somewhere else. So it definitely was not a good look on either accounts. Ronnie should definitely keep it internal. Snit should definitely pay attention to the game if he's not.
Yeah.
And if he is, and he chose to let it slide, own it.
Own it. Don't act like you weren't. Oh, what? There was a baseball game going on?
Right.
Like, come on, man. It does say Jared Kelnick went and apologized to went to his office and apologized for pimping last night's single.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I didn't know that's what they called that. I know exactly what they're saying, but yeah. It was wild. Something else in that article that I was just reading about. Ronnie said, when asked if basically he was going to miss Freddie Freeman, he said no. Basically, Freddie, he felt like Freddie mistreated him during his rookie season.
I know Freddie had a level of standard, and if you didn't meet it, he let you know about it. I will say, and we can move on to the next because we got some big topics to discuss here. But this team, the general consensus is they lack that level of leadership in the locker room that's going to hold them accountable. And many believe that that's missing Freddie and missing Ron Washington. Ron helped keep them loose, helped keep a certain vibe, and also, would tell them straight. So we'll see. Still a lot of baseball to play. We'll talk about the Braves a little bit later on.
And hot off the press, man, this got to be this is a connector on coming up Spaghetti Junction. It's like 75 came on over to the east. Landry Fields was fired today. You dropped that news on me before we got started, and I'm honestly quite surprised. We watched a couple of reactions. We watched State Shapiro. We watched Abe Gordon. Obviously, their opinions aren't as important as ours. So, what do you think about that firing? Because I didn't quite get your take yet. We watched theirs.
So I'm gonna echo something that I think you feel when you look at recency, right? The decision with DeJounte Murray was obviously a failure on the management. They gave up way too much for that failed experiment. But in return, they were able to make a little bit off of that by trading DJ this past offseason and getting Dyson Daniels and a couple other pieces, right? So I think when you evaluate the most recent moves and the ability to take a really terrible situation and flip it into something less terrible and maybe even positive, because I feel like Dyson has potential to be a star in this league. I think you have to give him credit for that. And this team, I think, passed their season expectations, their predicted win-loss record. Now, that wasn't good. They were not great. So you have to wonder, did the front office have the vision to take us to the next level? Because we've kind of been stagnant for the last couple of years, right? We've been in that very stagnant in that plan.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of the mid 2000s, right? Like 2006, 7, 8, 9, that whole era where we were making the playoffs every year, but not getting past the first round. And eventually you just got to blow the thing up to try and shake things and move on. Now, it didn't pan out. We didn't get any better. I think we had a period of time where we were like well worse off. So I don't want to see that happen here, but I don't I don't necessarily think the man deserved to get fired after the recent moves, but I also see the desire of, hey, let's move on. Let's see if we can find someone with a little bit more vision, and let's start taking a leap to take that next step, because this isn't working where we are.
Yeah, I feel like he was scapegoated. Uh, Echoing the points that you made about his most recent draft pick being solid, um, the trade that got the Great Barrier Thief. w- I didn't want DeAndre Hunter here anymore. Maybe he could have or should have gotten the first round, but he got a bunch of picks for that. Um, Bogey, I guess he was making moves, right? Even the DJ Murray trade was a move. It did not work, but I wasn't opposed to it when it first launched or when it first was announced. I was with it. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, let's get it. It was a lot for him. Those first picks were a lot, but they have finally made a stretch to get Trey a co-star. It just happened to not work out. Um, and so this is the opposite of Falcons, where I think that the coach, it's the same situation as the Falcons, actually. I think the coach is more responsible for wins and losses than the GM. Um, I think I honestly don't like Quinn Snyder
You just
as head
don't.
coach.
No, you don't.
I
You
don't.
haven't liked it since
Uh,
the start.
I thought it could work a little bit, but his rotations are just wild, man. Right? So if you're gonna fire anybody, fire Quinn or fire them both. What is Quinn still doing around?
So it's the same thing that I say when it comes to the Falcons. You've had multiple head coaches and you haven't gotten any different results. So is it really the head coach? Like, it's not, there's a common denominator there. And that common denominator for the last 5 years is Landry Fields. So, yes, the coach, I think, does have a lot to do and can influence wins and losses, but it also is about the Jimmies and the Joes, not just the X's and the O's.
That's true. What I'll say to that is that, and why I think he was scapegoated is because they're not gonna go out and make this big splash of a hire for the next GM. This interim guy, will probably be the GM that no
No,
one's
he is
heard
the
of.
GM.
Yeah,
On
they say they elevated him. That
Ansi
didn't sound
Salah.
permanent to me.
So the reports that I have seen are Ansi Salah will be your GM, and they are going to hire a new president of basketball operations, which is,
Mm,
I believe, what his title was before being elevated.
got it.
And I don't, to be frank, know what the job duties are of the president of basketball operations is. So
I wonder if I can't remember his name right now. I'm not gonna try. From Golden State, our old Travis Link. So I'm reading on uh, Salah. I don't know. Prior to that, he served as vice president of basketball strategy and team council for the Golden State Warriors. Salah was there with the franchise when they won the 2022 NBA championship. He has spent 5 seasons before that with the San Antonio Spurs as director of strategy and process chief of staff. So, I mean, he has some credentials. But if he's the guy, he's someone that I don't know. One. And is Tony Wrestler going to empower him to go out and actually make a splash and spend some money? Because much like Liberty Media, the Hawks do not seem to want to spend money.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think to your point, Landry is the scapegoat, and some of it is, the same as Double A, trying to make the best out of what you got because ownership doesn't want to open the checkbook. Or they will,
Yeah,
but only to a certain extent and not the level that's going to produce championship winning teams.
right. Homegrown Jalen Johnson getting the check, which was, well deserved. I guess deserved because he don't play a whole lot, but deserved is a much cheaper deal than, signing. I don't want him signing like a KD. So I don't know. I thought you got and it's quite the 180, but I think he got a raw deal getting out of there. I was excited to see what he would do with the offseason, especially since we now have a lottery pick with 13th. So I don't know. We'll see what they do with it. I'm very curious.
It is a big off season, and we'll close this segment out here. But it is a big off season because Trey's contract expires after next season, so
Yeah,
you're either going to need to swing for the fences and build a team around him, or trade him because if you don't put the pieces around him, he's going to walk on his own, and you're going to get nothing.
which would be the
Absolutely.
worst. I was telling Dion on Friday, if Trey Young is not on this team next year, I told him I'm probably done. I start watching college. I gotta pick a college team and just stick with them during the season because
Mm.
I'm kind of over it.
That's some pretty tough words from you.
Yeah, I won't pick another team up, another NBA team, right? But the the level of disappointment I would have of losing our biggest superstar since Dominique Wilkins would be very, very high.
Yeah, I can feel you there. Now, for me, I think it just depends on what you get in return, right? Like I'm not going to make that statement without knowing what you get in return for Trey. But I understand. Like if Trey was traded in a package deal that netted us Giannis, it'd be hard for me not to be excited about having Giannis. But that's a personal, you know, favorite player kind of connection for me, right?
I think it's also a bit of a pipe dream, right? They're not going to trade for Giannis. They they don't. The teams don't. The need isn't there for each other to swap, right? I see them trading Trey for like 3 first-round picks,
Ooh,
and like just for them to drop the ball on the picks, right? No, I'm not interested in those.
a bag of potato chips and a Diet Coke.
Yeah, we end up with like a AC Law or a Marvin Williams again.
Ooh,
Maybe we back to back Marvin Williams, Sheldon Williams, and we start that train wreck again. No, man, I'm not interested at all. Yeah,
oh,
but we've been on the highways for a while, man. You good to transition? All
yeah.
right, man. The highs and the lows.
From the parking garage to the penthouse, no one takes you on more highs and lows than Atlanta sports. Let's me, you, your mama, and your cousin too get on this elevator. Don't touch the button. We got you locked in.
So this was my high for the week. I know you were reluctant in agreement, but our Braves did go 4-2. That is a winning record on the week. They finished off the weekend with a 3-0 sweep against the Minnesota Twins, which I don't know if that's saying a whole lot. But a winning record's a winning record, and there wasn't much else going right for our Atlanta team. So they were my high. Um, Spencer Strider did make his return last week. He lost. The game was a loss, 3-1 loss to the Blue Jays. He did pitch 5 innings, allowed 5 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 5 Ks, a home run, and then a 3.6 ERA for the game. Now, news came out today that he's going to hit the 15-day IL for a hamstring, which sad to see. He didn't get much time before he's already on the injured list. But, still decent week for the team. We did have another debut in Alex Verdugo. He's batting as the leadoff hitter. In 3 games and 14 at bats, he's had 5 hits, 2 doubles, an RBI, 1 strikeout, and he's hitting a 357 average. So he brought a little bit of a spark to us. Good to see him. I think he has that swagger that we kind of miss. He kind of gives me Jock Peterson vibes. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes, but definitely a better week for the Braves than the previous 2.
Yeah, so it's still low for me. The sweep is nice. The opponent was not very good. And if we needed a 3-game sweep to get to a 4-2 record, we were 1-2 on the week, right? We're still bottom of the barrel. We're still last in the NL East behind the Nationals. I think it's only a game, but still, last is last. The show ain't first.
I will.
We're 6 games out of first. So and then losing Spencer was a big deal. We talked about Ronnie earlier. Now it seems like there's beef with him and Snit, and he's got some money owed to him in the future. Who knows how big a mountainous anthill could become? So I'm gonna say that they're down, and I'm gonna blow your mind. My high was Trey Young's play and performance. Um, both games. The first the first one is not much of a. I watched that game. I watched both games, start to finish. The Orlando game was not refereed very well. It was very one-sided. They kept saying how physical a team that Orlando was, but you could tell even the broadcast crew, like the end game, not Shaq putting Harry the Hawk in a box and saying, the Hawk is dead. Not that, right? But in game, they're like, oh yeah, that might have been a foul there, right? They had to say that a bunch of times. And you could tell they were very reluctant to because the NBA wanted Orlando to win. They were bodying Trey. So his ejection, I I hate to say it, I loved it. Right? He hit the yo-yo on the ref. He was upset. He threw a chest pass to Gucci Mane, the referee Gucci Mane, which I thought I didn't think that was warranting a tech, maybe a warning, right? But he threw him a solid chest pass, got teed up for that, and was upset about that. And he intercepted the ball to the other referee, hit him with that yo-yo before he walked out the court and let the ball bounce away. The referee called it a travesty, that was another word, but equally as visceral, right? It was a big word, SAT word. Said he made a mockery of the game is what it was. And I was like, you stretching it a little bit, player. Um, there were several plays in that game where Trey Young exhibited like grade A defense. He's never gonna be a stopper, right? But his heart and hustle was on display. You could tell he really wanted to win that game. He was getting beat up. The first half, he couldn't get any foul calls. He persisted, and he finally got a few. towards the end of the game until there was the player that pushed him out of bounds should have got the check. I don't remember who that was, but that's the Orlando game. The Miami game, he fought just as hard. And at the end of the game, instead of doing the classic Trey Young of taking a super hard shot to win it, he went for the tie and he made that layup. And I thought that was such a moment of growth for him and maturity for him. And I really appreciated watching him in those two games, even though they both ended up in the L.
So I can understand your take. I kind of agree with you when it comes to the double tech. I thought the original tech was weak, that the refs are way too far in their feelings. They have way too much power. Like, to eject somebody in a playing game is crazy. Like, I feel like
Yeah,
you should have to do something much more egregious to warrant the ejection, but it is what it is. I will say the Hawks did shoot more foul shots in that Orlando game than Orlando.
yeah, yeah. That now is a second half thing. Orlando, they're a terrible offensive team, so they don't draw a lot of fouls. That number should have been what it was. The disparity, it should have been a bigger delta between those two,
Yeah.
though. There's a lot of calls that were missed on the Hawks side that were given to Orlando.
I will say I watched some of the Golden State Houston game last night.
Mm,
I think I fell asleep sometime in the third quarter, so I didn't watch it all the way through. But it was like watching a street fight, man. The physicality that Houston was coming with was on a whole nother level, and they weren't blowing that whistle. So I don't know how much of it is like just that old adage that playoff basketball is more physical, that they let them play, that they're
yeah,
gonna hold the whistle, which to me is stupid, right? The rules didn't change.
right.
Why are you
Why are you
calling
calling the
it
game different?
different? Yeah, like that's just ignorant. But it is the trend, and it doesn't seem like it was just the Hawks who were subjected to it, right? So
Now, I would say, like on that though, cool. Don't call the game the way you used to call it in the regular season. But they weren't doing that. They were calling very ticky tack fouls on the Hawks.
yeah, and that's
The
what you sent me.
smaller, the pitiful, little taps on the wrist, but Trey Young gets pushed into the crowd and there's nothing to be said, right?
Yeah, and that's what you texted me the night of the game was
I call it fair.
not just that it was more physical, but they were calling ticky tack fouls on the Hawks where they were
Yeah.
holding their whistle on the other end. Yeah. So I can get down with that. I will say it is 4 in a row. The Atlanta Braves just took down the St. Louis Cardinals in game 1 of their series that started tonight. Sean Murphy hit a 3-run home run in the 8th to take the lead.
Big
But
respect, Sean Murphy.
yeah,
big,
no, like
big respect.
Sean Murphy is smacking that thing, and so is Austin Riley. So, um, I told you last week I was lukewarm on the Braves. Still feeling lukewarm, but I'm definitely heating up. I think I'm at like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas I was at like 72
Yeah.
last week. So they're still my
If
number one.
if I did it in elevator terms, I would say the Braves maybe we're back to the main level.
We made it to the
To the
lobby.
main floor. We're out of the basement into the lobby. The Hawks, I feel like are going the opposite way. Despite my feelings of how Trey played in the play-in, the firing of Landry, I definitely had unrealistic expectations. When I saw the squad that was out there, the starting five, I got to eat a little bit of crow, man. We probably did have the worst odds of winning the championship of the playing teams.
Yeah, and so they were my low of the week. And I think, part of mine might have been bias on, last week you and I had that conversation and neither of us felt like number 20 out of 20 was warranted. And then they went and they laid an egg and they just kind of made us eat crow. So I was a little hurt by their
Yeah.
performance. I do think it's a bad look to have two shots at it and miss both times.
Oh yeah.
So that was my low for the week. Just missing the play in and kind of underachieving where we thought they would be, although our expectations might have been a little high.
Mine were sky high.
Championship
From
or bust.
where they should have been. Now I thought we could get into the first round and compete, right? Like we did with the Celtics 2 years ago. Celtics won the series, but we won more than one game, right? And I think that's commendable. But you know, it didn't happen. So on to the next, man.
With that,
Next season.
yeah, I think with that we should go ahead and hit the main topic.
From the gridiron to the hardwood, you know you got to keep your eyes on the birds. Let's talk Hawks. Let's talk Falcons. This is Hootie Hoo.
Hootie Hoo. Yeah, man. So it is draft week. It's finally here. The 365 news cycle that the NFL has put into effect. This is like the Super Bowl after the Super Bowl. It is a long way between this and the regular season, but this is a big piece. That's nice, and we'll be in the building on Thursday. Get y'all some live draft coverage. But who do you? I told you I was looking at several different mock drafts. Everyone is saying something different about who the Falcons are gonna take.
I've seen
Where
a
are you
lot
at with
of
it, man?
I've seen a lot of positions being the same for round one, but different name, right? So the way I kind of looked at it was, what are the Falcons' needs? And I'll tell you what mine were, and I'll tell you the order in which I perceive them. Um, I'm not going to tell you the order just yet. I'm going to start with just the needs, any order. But I think edge is still a need. Wide receiver, defensive back, linebacker, defensive tackle, and offensive line. Those are our 6 needs. And for me, edge is still number one. Number 1B would be a defensive tackle. And then number 3, defensive back. Then number 5, offensive line. Number 4, offensive line. Number 5, wide receiver. And then number 6, inside linebacker.
Defensive back. You lean more cornerback or safety with that?
So I think corner is the higher need, but you definitely need someone to pair alongside Jesse Bates. So I could go either way, but I do think if you were just looking at safety corner, I lean more corner.
Hmm.
But this is where the intricacies of the draft matter, and it's if Malachi Starks is sitting there and the value is right, I could take a Malachi Starks over a corner.
Yeah.
I also, there's a lot of talk, a lot of rumor about, potential cornerback signings. You sent me a proposal bringing Jalen Ramsey here. I saw another one about signing the free agent from the Bengals. Why can't I remember his name? But either way, there are a couple opportunities for experienced corners that we could go after as well.
Dax Hill? No,
No,
that's probably not who you're talking about. Yeah. Stephen Gilmore.
I don't think that was it either. That's definitely not who I saw, but either way,
All right.
I still think Edge is number one, even with the signing of Leonard Floyd.
I do too. I think Edge should be number one, and that's where things got a little dicey for me in the CBS Sports mock draft because they have. So was not Walter Nolan a Bulldog at some point, and he transferred to Ole Miss? No,
No,
I don't know why I know that name.
he was at Texas A&M before he transferred to Ole
Okay,
Miss. Maybe you're thinking of Nolan Smith.
potentially, yeah, it's a Nolan somebody. So you got a defensive lineman, safety. Those are the picks that we have there. Then you have an edge. Then you have a cornerback. Then you have a edge. And I think the last one was an edge as well. Yeah, edge. So the overwhelming need agrees with you that we need an edge. I agree with you as well. I like an edge. Um, it's just weird how I mean it's like they try to confuse us on purpose, right? Jalen Walker nor Michael Walker,
Mikael Williams.
Michael Williams. At the beginning of the mock draft season, they were both in range for us to get. Now neither of them in most mock drafts are in range. And we're settling upon like a Mike Green. I've seen his name. There's this pick here. He looks like he's gone. Walter Nolan was one of them. Then you have a safety, Nick Amenwari. Now, why would you take him over the stud out of Georgia, right? And he's still on the board in this guy's draft.
I don't know, and
Uh,
that's
it's
like
all a crapshoot, man.
that's the crazy thing about mock drafts too, because I looked at several today, and none of them had the Falcons picking either of those two guys out of Georgia, and all of them had those guys drafted after us.
Which
Which if they're
that's crazy.
there and if we pass them up, like I kind of feel like you when it comes to Trey. Like at
Yeah.
some point, my feelings are going to be so hurt. I don't know if I can continue with this team.
Or you'll want my boy Fire, Scary Terry. Which at that point, if they're there and he doesn't draft him, after all that hoopla about how many people were at Georgia's pro day, it would be kind of ridiculous for him not to pull that trigger.
Yeah, and some news just coming out like this week. They both had different individual meetings with the Falcons. So Jalen Walker attended the Falcons local pro day on April 11th, and then Michael Williams did a private workout on April 16th. And some
Mm,
buzz that was roaming around the streets was a video of Michael dapping up Jeff Ulbrich after the workout, and they seem pretty tight. So I know there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around this time of year, but I hope that's not what's at play here. Um, I really, I think as a fan, the easier thing would be for them just not to be available when we pick, right?
that's the easiest thing. You
um,
know what's wild is that I think if they go like offense, there'll be a riot in the bins, man. Like they're gonna start flipping tables, throwing glass. Now we're not like Philadelphia fans, but the disappointment would be monumentous if they did something crazy like that.
yeah, I don't think there's really any real possibility that that happens. Um, but you're absolutely right. There, it would be mutiny. Uh, if we go offense.
Like if we draft Shador, a lot of people have him falling to all the way down to the Steelers. It's gonna be interesting because it's been so much flip and flop. Right, even between the number one overall pick, you have Abdul Carter, um, but most people think it's going to be Cam Ward. And then you'll see some people say that like Travis Hunter is a once in a generation talent. You're a fool not to get him first. So we'll see what Tennessee does.
So, two things. One, I thought it was interesting. So, I guess CBS Sports posted an article where they went to the AI bots and had AI do a mock round one mock draft. So I took a look at it, and it actually had us getting Abdul Carter, which if he was available at 15 would be wild, but I wouldn't be mad at that pick. It's just I think
No, I wouldn't either.
completely unrealistic to think that he will be available all the way at 15. And then the second thing is, this is non-Falcons related, but I still want your opinion on it. Travis Hunter came out and said that if he cannot play both sides of the ball in the NFL, he will retire.
Yeah, that's cap. I mean, and I don't think a team is going to draft him and not give him, at least a couple of plays at wide receiver.
So you think he's
I
going to
was,
be strictly corner for the most part?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I've heard. Right, is that his talents at corner, especially his ball skills, that he also has as a wide receiver are better.
Hmm.
Right, he stacks up very well and could be a prolific corner in the league for many years to come. Whereas his route running isn't very good. There was a clip that was showing him at I don't know who's I don't think it was a pro day. I think it was it was a workout, and they weren't super crisp. But I've seen this man catch run some routes and catch some balls that I know a lot of people can't do. Right, so I was talking to another one of our friends. I was talking to Carlos about it, and what if he's a kick returner? Would that suffice for his desire to play multiple sides of the ball?
He returned kicks when he was at JSU.
Hmm.
So I don't know. That's
He's
a
a dynamic. Like he got the ball in hand, he's still dynamic. I think he's probably better pulling the ball out of the air, but he's really good on his feet, man. He did some crazy stuff at
yeah.
Colorado and at Jackson.
So back to the draft. So the Falcons have 5 picks right now. Round 1, pick 15, round 2, number 46, round 4, 118, and then we have 2 seventh rounders, pick 218 and 242. We can basically consider those 2 picks probably irrelevant. And even that 4th round pick is typically a stretch. It's usually a depth, maybe a practice squad guy. Um, so really 2 picks to make impact here. So I'll just ask you, what positions would you go if you're Terry Fontenot with those first 2 picks?
So the first one, I, Terry Fontenot's always said best player available, right? So I want the best player available that is either an edge or a safety. For that second pick, I'm less concerned about the position and just want like the best player available. I know we have other needs, but at the second round, best player available feels like somebody is going to, be able to give you some immediate snaps versus if I got an edge and I force myself to get a safety, maybe I don't get a guy who's immediately going to be able to make an impact. Whereas if, there's a tight end there that's just going crazy, I pick him. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I yeah, I get where you're coming from. Um, so does your draft philosophy, would you fall in that best available kind of over need?
The rest of the draft, yeah. First round, no. I think your best available and your needs have to align.
So what
You want the
if
stars to align on that.
so if you're sitting at 15 and the best available player at a position of need is projected, say, in the 20s in terms of value, you still picking that person, or like what are you doing?
You're gonna make an attempt to trade back. Um, Smoking Joe Patrick. Yeah, they should get us on the show at some point, man. Not too not again. But he was on earlier, and they asked him, the likelihood of the Falcons trading back. That they had mentioned that they would be willing to trade back and looking forward to it. But it's like it's probably not gonna happen, right? So many people have a need or can wait. It's just kind of a split. There's not someone who's really in the middle. Right? 15 is not that desirable. If you had a 9, you could probably trade back, even a 10, 11. But at 15, you're just smack dab in the middle. So it's going to have to happen like right before your pick, you know?
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
where there's so much minutia in what
yeah.
actually happens in the draft, because there typically are runs at positions, right? So a lot of the time, if you see a run, let's say at edge this year, and your need is edge, that may force your, you know,
From
hand to,
FOMO in. Yeah.
yeah, FOMO is real, man. Uh, so I do think that sometimes it's more so how things kind of start to play out and take shape during the early picks on whether or not teams are willing to move up. And we'll have to
Yeah.
be seeing something like that for us to have an opportunity to move back.
I do think you need some flexibility in a best player available mentality, right? Or not so much that best player available, trying to blend that with your needs. You do need some flexibility. Like you can't just pigeonhole yourself just to edge because you do have more than one high need. I think a defensive back. Well, at 15, there's only one that I would want, and that's Malachi Stark. So if they drafted him there, though that may be high on a lot of people's boards, I'm not necessarily mad at that.
Yeah, so that was kind of the example that I had cooked in my brain. Is like Malachi is, I think, a player that fits that position of need, but also doesn't have the top 15 kind of value by most experts. Experts are whatever you want to call them, but it would appear to be a reach if we were to draft him at 15. But if we were able to slide into like the mid to early 20s, it feels better on paper. Um, and then for me, I'm kind of agreeing with you. Round one, edge. I could even go defensive tackle or safety. And whichever one of those we don't get round one, I would fill with round two. And then just because I think it's a higher need, offensive line, center specifically, I might go center in round four to get someone,
Mm,
since we did lose our starting center.
yeah. I wasn't mad at that. I know we talked about it, but he got big money. Shout out to him
Yeah.
collecting that bag, but I probably wouldn't have paid that either.
So, final kind of thoughts on the draft. We signed a backup quarterback today in Easton Stick. What a name.
Easton Stick.
Yeah, so we signed a backup quarterback. Some reports have come out that our current backup quarterback, Kirk Cousins, uh, what the team is asking in return for trade packages includes a pretty heavy financial split. I saw numbers reporting they want teams to take on 20 million of the remaining guarantees, which I think is roughly half of his remaining guaranteed, which is pretty
Yeah,
hefty.
20 M's is a lot.
Yeah, and so I think that's been a roadblock to making a deal. But as we said earlier in a previous episode, there is potential, draft night shenanigans that we could see a Kirk Cousins packaged and maybe even a Kyle Pitts packaged to get some additional draft equity. Uh, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, Les Miles, I think his name is, the GM for the Rams. So F them picks, man. I want proven players more than anything. Having more third or fourth round picks that's just not very appealing to me. I know you can win championships in those rounds, right? But especially I guess if we don't have money.
But
But give me a player.
but what if those picks actually get you, or that gets you up to top 10 or top 5? Is there a player in that range that you would even, want to go after that hard?
Top five,
Yeah, top 5, top 10.
potentially one.
Travis,
Oh, absolutely.
is he the only one?
Um, so what I heard about Abdul Carter is that he's a generational player. Like he's going to be a game wrecker immediately. But he also had, I think he was injured. Um, I never want to draft someone with a recent injury. So trading up, leveraging the future to get just him. Nah, I do it. I do. I've heard enough about him being a dog that
Is,
I do it.
is trading a Kirk Cousins and a Kyle Pitts really leveraging the future at this point?
Oh well, you're gonna have to do a lot more than that. You're not making it into the top five for them. I
Well,
thought you were talking about
I'm
that
saying,
plus
like,
like our 15 plus next year's first.
do you think it would take that much? Like, if you package one or two of those guys plus the 15th pick, you don't think you could move up top 5? I don't know.
Not top two,
You think you got to be top 2 for those? Because I think Cam Ward has a decent opportunity to go number
one
1.
or two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
yeah, I do too.
which means that one of those guys is going to be number 3 to 5, or potentially after, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, anyways, just something to think about. It's Les Snead. Les Miles is an old
LSU
college.
coach.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Less Snead. I knew it was a less.
yeah. You were close, halfway there. So, final thoughts. If you could pick today and all things happen according to your will, give me a guy that you're getting at number 1.
Number one overall? Or are
No,
you talking about for the Falcons?
for the Falcons.
Realistic pick.
Realistic pick.
Jalen Walker.
That's your guy?
That's who I want.
That's who I want too. I don't think
Is
he's
it?
going to be available. So
Yeah, I see him going like eighth and ninth a lot.
so he's my number 1, but I think more realistic is Michael Williams, and I would be happy with either of those two. So my pick's going to be Michael Williams. So you're going Jalen. I'm going Michael. We'll have to tune in Thursday to see if either of us are correct, or if we decide to pull a Michael Penix Jr. pick like we did last year and just out of left field.
Now, part of me feels like you somewhat called that.
So it started to get kind of some noise around it the week of the draft. And
Yeah.
it started to feel like there was a legitimate opportunity. I heard, personalities that I trust their voice talk about it. And so I posed the question before the draft, but I didn't actually think they would do it.
My face was very shocked when they did. I didn't think they were gonna do that either.
Yeah. So we'll
Yeah,
bring
man, it's gonna be interesting. It's always it's always hit or miss. There's no in between with with any Atlanta sports teams. It's gonna be loved or hated.
everyone
No
else
one,
is playing chess and we're playing checkers.
maybe marbles, man. We just throwing them out there. Ding, 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 ding.
I always get the impression that we think we're smarter than everybody else, so we do some wacky stuff and then it ends up blowing up in our face.
Last year it worked, I
It
would
did.
say.
Yeah.
The picks that we've had have all translated to very good Falcons. Every pick except for Kyle Pitts that Terry has made has panned out. All right, Bijan, 2 years from now, he'll be the greatest Falcons running back of all times. We'll table that conversation for another time. But um, Drake London is well on his way. Michael Penix, shout out Theo, he got me a Penix jersey for my birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm rocking some new threads to let that old Tulio Tuone's jersey go.
Mm.
He's not number 11 anymore anyway. That's Emory Jones' number now. Oh, Emory Jones. That's Jay-Z's that's where the name was coming from. It wasn't from football at all. Emory Jones is Jay-Z's right-hand man.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll come at you live Thursday with our reactions to who the Falcons end up going with. Do they stay at 15? Do they trade up? Do they trade back? We'll just have to wait and see. Old Terry, get to work. It's gonna be a busy night.
Get after it, Terry. Tell them why you need your job, man. Why you the man for the gig. Like, subscribe, follow, like again, then do some comments, and we can all be friends.
And hit us up on our socials. You got Players Ball Podcast on Instagram, on TikTok. We appreciate y'all's support, and we'll kick you on the next episode.
Which that was my foot. Peace.
Peace.